As we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, a Knoxville school was one of 52 schools across the country picked for the Silent Heroes program. This allows teachers and students to research World War II veterans, their lives before, during, and after their service with the help of a national history professor. Thousands of East Tennessee veterans are buried at this cemetery just off Governor John Sevier Highway. Thousands of life stories are also here.
It was really incredible.
A handful of students at L&N STEM Academy, along with their U.S. history teacher, Dr. Andrew Foltz, were chosen by a national nonprofit, National History Day, to learn and share the stories of two veterans.
I was like, you know, that sounds really cool.
I was ecstatic to be able to delve into local history and how that would intersect with our national history.
They learned about World War II veterans Corporal George Price, a Knoxville native, and Staff Sergeant Carl Taylor.
He gets wounded in November of 1943 at the Gilbert Island campaign, for which he will receive with the Purple Heart, and then he returns to military service.
After months of looking into census records, genealogies, and dozens of pages of military files on the two veterans, they got to learn even more about them at the Veterans Cemetery.
Being able to talk to their families, it just added this whole other layer about them.
On top of learning more, they also shared what they learned about them.
You could tell like the family members were very appreciative of what the students had been doing, thanked us.
It's a special moment not just for these families, but Dr. Foltz.
It reminded me of why I became a teacher, to be with these students, to see like all the things that they're capable of, and I was extremely proud of everything that they did.
Now, some of the things the students also learned: Corporal George Price worked at the Riverside Pool in the Island Home area. Has been around for decades. He did that before enlisting in the Marines in 1945. As for Staff Sergeant Carl Taylor, he was born in North Carolina and moved here to Knoxville after his service.